for an amendment to come back. So we're going to start, though, with House Bill 868 for the presentation from the delegation chair, Delegate Smith. So if you'd like to begin, you can go right ahead. But I know we have a person who is here to testify on the bill's behalf as well. So go ahead, Delegate Smith.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I'm here to present a bill that would extend a BD7 license to a business that, quite frankly, we're happy to see has opened in the midst of a pandemic in the Harford Road corridor, Fire and Rice. I believe I said that correctly. And that should hint at what is provided at this establishment: high quality sushi and other products. Now, something just to know about the 45th District, we really endeavor before we feel comfortable introducing bills in support of BD7s is to make sure that the neighboring community is supportive and does not have any concerns about this idea. So before you hear from a representative of the person attempting to receive the license, in terms of my senator, who's the first file, we did receive a letter of support from the Walterson Community Improvement Association, saying that they are supportive of this BD7 license being extended, particularly because the business has been forthcoming about not only their current hours of operation, but to the extent as the economy approves what an expanded hours of operations could look like. And the community was comfortable with not only where they are now, but where they could potentially go, as our economy evolves and so forth. So I don't want to steal too much thunder from our witness for the panel, but I just want to say that I do hope that after you hear of their efforts and their support from the community, that you will extend a favorable report for this bill. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Greenfeld, I'm sorry. You have to unmute yourself, though.
Yeah, that'll help. Thank you, Delegate Cloutier, and thank you, Delegate Smith. Great to see a lot of friends here. Haven't seen in a really, really long time. It's actually pretty cool. I'm here tonight in favor of this bill on behalf of the property owner at the address 4801 Harford Road, which is the Soha Union apartments and retail spaces. We have 16 two-bedroom apartments and 5 retail spaces in the building. We're mostly leased up, which is really exciting. It is the first mixed-use construction along the Harford Road corridor in many decades, as far as I know. So it's really exciting. One of the businesses that we have open is Fire and Rice. Like the delegate said, they serve sushi and ramen and rice bowls, and they are seeking a BD7 liquor license. Before the pandemic, they were supposed to go in a slightly larger space upstairs in the building. That hasn't worked out due to the pandemic. It really hasn't made any sense for us to open a 3,500 square foot restaurant with a full bar and lots of seating and all of those things. So they went in the lower level of the building, which fronts on Southern Avenue, and they opened up in October, and the reception has been outstanding. And they said, you know what, we actually really like it here. We want to stay here. But we need to be able to do a couple more things to make this sustainable and feasible for us. So we went to the community, Walterson Improvement Association, and presented the idea that they would get a liquor license to have sort of a craft cocktail menu, as well as Japanese sake to go along with the sushi and ramen and rice bowls. And the community said, you guys have been really good neighbors so far. We think you're doing a great job. We want to support you, and we're going to support you in this endeavor. So I think you guys have a letter of support from Walterson. They had a couple of requests, really nothing crazy by any means, no cash and carry, some limits on hours, and then there's a couple of other limitations that are in the legislation that I believe mirrors word for word the legislation that Senator McCray, and I don't recall who the House sponsor was last year, did for Silver Queen Cafe, which is about, I don't know, Delegate Smith, thank you, about 10 blocks up the road in Hamilton. So, we want to abide by all of those standards. We own and operate numerous properties along the Hamilton-Larville Main Street. We think we're responsible property owners, and the business owners here are super responsible. In fact, the business owner who will get the license, a man named Alex Champagne, actually lives in the neighborhood, so he's about as accountable as you can be. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and thank you in advance for your support.
Are there questions for the sponsor or the witness?
I had a quick question about the hours of operation.
Delegate Boyce.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you hear my question?
Delegate Boyce, I'm sorry. I recognized you after you asked the question. I'm sorry. We'll get this right.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. It's my bad. Delegate Boyce asks about the hours of operation. This is a BD7, right? So that's a 2 a.m. close?
That's correct. That is what the license allows. Sorry, Nick, I might have cut you off. I don't know if you want to speak. Currently, the business is open, let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They're off on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and they are open from about 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. As things improve, they hope to go to maybe 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock if they're getting crazy. They never intend to be open late. We don't view this as, a bar people hang out at all night. I don't think anybody views it that way, regardless of what business is there in the future, whether it's Fire and Rice or something else. Maybe in the future, that's not what this space is ever intended to be, and frankly won't be. It just isn't built for that. It's not a bar. It's mostly a small, sit-down, quiet kind of place.
Okay. Delegate Conaway, I see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking for the raised hand
It's
again.
it's not the same. It's not the same.
So under this bill, Mr. Greenfield, under this bill, potentially the store could stay open until 2, even though you're saying they're not going to do that, but they could stay open until 1 or 2 at correct? Is that correct?
That's what a BD7 license allows, and that this is what a BD7 is. That's not what the business will do. The bill does require an MOU with the community, and we will honor that MOU.
Well, I understand that, and we just came off of a bill in another committee, in the full committee, that they were talking about if you have it, then you're intending to use it, and I was against that theory, and you just proven that theory. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Can I speak on, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Delegate Smith.
I do appreciate those concerns, but one of the kind of expectations and requirements of getting a BD7 in the 45th district with our senator is that the legislation reads that it doesn't go into effect until an MOU is executed between the community association that's relevant and this business. So essentially that MOU will memorialize what we're discussing here as it relates to hours of operation. So I do appreciate the concerns you are providing, but that's why we try to create a system where we're not really going to introduce a bill unless it's pursuant to an MOU between the community and the business.
So I would just like to, can I just be clear on what's being said? So
Delegate Conaway.
So what you're saying is that without the community's agreement, the store will not be able to stay open past let's say the 10 o'clock time or 11 o'clock time, even though the license does say that they can stay open until 2? Is that what you're saying?
This bill doesn't go into effect without the MOU reflecting that. So essentially, without the MOU, they don't have a license.
So the MOU is going to have the time dictated in there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, and one brief question from me. I thought it was interesting that it said that alcohol, and I see you, Delegate Rosenberg, the alcohol can only be served outside if it's being served with a meal. Is that correct? Has to be served with a meal.
That is correct. Those are the guidelines that Senator McCray, Delegate Smith, and the 45th District Delegation have decided upon, and we are totally agreeable to that, as well as the MOU. The neighborhood hasn't asked for an MOU yet, so we haven't made one, but obviously we will to comply with the legislation, whatever it is that the community ends up deciding on the hours before we go and get the license from the liquor board.
All right, Delegate Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the MOU would take precedence over the provision in law that says a BD7 can be open until 2 a.m. See Mr. Blendy.
Is that how that works, Mr. Blending?
There's two things, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for
Yes.
recognizing me. First of all, for the record, Nicholas Blendy, Deputy Executive Secretary for the Baltimore City Board of Liquor License Commissioners. So the way that the bill is written sets as a condition precedent to the issuance of the liquor license to the licensee, the MOU being executed. So our board would never issue this BD7 license on this defined block unless there was an MOU in hand. That's the way we've read it, and that's the way the law reads it, and that's the power that the General Assembly would be granting us. As a second matter, when there is an MOU that is included in a license at time of issuance, the board does have the power to enforce upon violations of the MOU. It's treated as an incorporated condition, and those, as you know, anybody who got to watch the renewal process, protest of renewal for the property in the chairman's district, Chop Tank, without an actual MOU, the board doesn't have any near allegations of things that were conveyed cannot be enforced upon. But with an MOU incorporated as part of the license, then the board could choose to, if it found a violation of that, impose a violation of the license and either fine a monetary amount, suspend hours, or ultimately potentially revoke the license. So that is the, I guess, short explanation on both tracks.
All right. Delegate Boyce, is that actually the raise hand feature? That's exciting.
I know I found it because I heard Sandy say he couldn't, so I wanted to find it and use it. Stop laughing at me.
I'm very proud.
Thank you. Yeah. I just want to make sure, because I think to Delegate Conway's point is like, while we know BD7s are, 7 days a week, that we know in some cases, liquor establishments will say, well, I have all day long, 7 days a week to operate, but it's really at the discretion. So I guess I want to make sure and I guess Delegate Smith, Chairwoman Smith can answer this about the opposite. So say the business, they're doing well, they want to expand their hours, but maybe not necessarily alcohol. So let's say business is doing good and they want to go until whatever our city restaurant allowances are now. Would they be allowed to expand eating, but maybe necessarily not expand alcohol, their alcohol provisions per whatever MOUs is going to be set up? Does that make sense?
I want to make sure I'm following Delegate Boyce. Sorry, I put a few people on mute. You can always unmute later. Just wanted to, help. Just to make sure I'm following Delegate Boyce, you're saying, let's say the business wants to continue serving food past a certain time, but not alcohol. Is that what you mean? Beyond maybe the hours that were contemplated with the community, which my understanding is that they are ending at 9 now, but even in the Walterson improvement letter, they said they'd be comfortable with an expansion up to 11 o'clock. Their letter details a comfort with expanding to 11 o'clock, even with the alcohol, because they realize business is kind of not normal right now. And, and I have to say, again, I'm really just appreciative of them taking kind of that effort to go to the community to kind of iron out not just what is, but what could be, because I think a lot of us have seen that as things evolve and communication doesn't exist, it can really become really difficult. So I just want to commend all parties involved with kind of hashing out a slate of kind of evolving circumstances, but where they feel comfortable with it going. So does that satisfy you?
Yeah, I guess I'm just making sure that the hours of the license isn't necessarily dictating the expansion of business. But of course, it's at their discretion if they decide that they want to be open until 11, even after, our state of emergency, or 12, and say we cut off alcohol at 10, that they have a discretion to pass, open hours, whatever license they may have. So, but it wouldn't, the liquor license wouldn't dictate their open hours or whatever.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody's had lots of questions. Delegate Conway with a second bite at the apple.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really going right to the thrust of my question. With the Super Bowl coming up next week, let's just say, I mean, it's a chance for them to make money, and you're saying it's the COVID and all of this here. So why not stay open until 2? And everybody's going to be for that. Make a couple bucks. What's wrong with that? And that was my question. So now we're saying that the MOU does not necessarily dictate when they can sell the alcohol and serve the dinner, right? That's what we're saying now. It's kind of at their discretion. Is that correct?
No, we're not saying that at all. I do want to kind of play out your example because, quite frankly, the Super Bowl is done usually before 10 p.m. so that they can premiere a new show. So usually people are out that late. So I just want to follow that, that story, that analogy out. But anyways, seriously, the MOU would control the hours of operation. And quite frankly, the MOU also gives that launch pad for further discussions if there ever needed to be any amendment to that MOU, because it's based on actual communication between the business and the community. So the community has stated a flexibility up to hours they don't currently operate in, but they have not displayed any interest in anything beyond 11 p.m.
Okay, are there further questions on this bill? I think we've hashed this out pretty well. And I don't see any further questions, so that's fine. What we did last week is we said we'd vote on it, give it a week and then come back and vote on it the next week. Since we have the bill that is my bill that needs an amendment, we're going to need to come back next week anyway to vote that. So we'll do this one and that one next week, if that's fine. All right. Thank you very much, Chair Smith. Now, we have two bills to vote on. One of them is House Bill 256. This is Delegate Rosenberg's legislation. I don't know that there were any amendments to this bill. There are amendments to this bill, correct? You have to go off mute though, Sandy. There we go. No, you're still muted. Delegate Rosenberg, you're still muted.
A rare event. There is an amendment moving it from to the right side of the correct side of the street, which is in the files. So can I move? Is it appropriate for me to move the amendment?
It would be appropriate for you to move the amendment. I'm looking at Jeremy Baker. He says that it's in the file. If memory serves, we heard that it was on the one side of Frederick and it should have been the other side of Frederick. And so is there, there's a motion on the amendment that just makes that change.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Haynes.
Yeah, good afternoon. Two things I just want to quickly ask the sponsor of the legislation, because we know that the area in which we are talking about is a split community between two legislative districts. And actually, Frederick Avenue is sort of on the right side, is at that location is one district, on the left side is another district, I think. So I just want to make sure. I spoke to the chair of Community Association, and believe you me, this has been a problem issue for several years. But my only question is, with Delegate Rosenberg, by moving it to the other side of Frederick Avenue, does that correctly reflect your district, the 41st district, or does that block reflect District 44A? Because the line is really a problem there as far as and I don't have the legislation directly in front of me, but I do know it's about the 4000 block of Fifth Avenue. Is that correct?
Delegate Rosenberg, you're muted. You're still muted. Now you're not. Go ahead.
Okay. My apologies, delegate. It had been brought to my attention that this licensee with the amendment is in the 44A and not in 41.
Right. So,
But as you say, we talked with the community leader. That's why we put the bill in.
right, and I think one of the things, just so we're clear, this has been a problem for, like I said, for many years, and not just at that location, but other locations which technically lie in the 41st district. And I had, suggested that to reach out to the legislators in the 41st district in another area of that block on the other side. So I guess the question that I have is, since we're dealing with alcohol-related legislation, specifically with the legislative districts, should the bill be amended to reflect the legislators who represent that district? I mean, it wouldn't hold the bill up. I mean, it's just an amendment, so that it actually reflects
to add yourself
that we're using.
To add, I mean, an amendment to add yourself as a sponsor.
Well,
I'm fine. That's fine with me. I don't know what the rule is, though, Mr. Chair.
I guess that's what I'm asking clarification on, Mr. Chairman of the subcommittee or the council, because I don't know exactly. I'm trying to get clarification on the policy of how we're handling legislation as it relates to specific districts. And so I need some clarification on that. And if someone can provide that to me, it'd be great.
So the rule that has come from the Speaker's office has been that we are not doing co-sponsorship amendments this year because of the challenges that we face with COVID. Having said that, what I would say here in this limited case where it has to do with a liquor license that literally sits on a district boundary, and there is an amendment that's being made that moves the focus of it from the one side of the street to the other side of the street to facilitate the legislation, which apparently the neighborhood agrees with. I think in this narrow case, because it has to do with a geographic issue related to the bill, right? And because we're already probably going to amend the bill, I don't think that there would be an issue allowing you to amend on.
Right. That's part of my question. But my other question really is, under what is the policy as it relates to legislators filing legislation on liquor bills that are outside of the district, irrespective of whether it's a split community or not? Because I wouldn't put in a piece of legislation that would affect a liquor establishment in District 46 or 45 or 40. So my question is a little bit deeper than that. And that's what I'm asking clarification on.
I don't believe that there is a policy that says that you can't put.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there. Okay. There's not a policy that says that you can't put in a liquor bill in somebody else's district. In fact, the next bill that we're going to talk about, 506, Delegate Branch's bill, addresses a typographical issue that needs to be dealt with in the 46th district. And he was asked to do it, and the members of the 46th district don't have a problem. Clearly, if the members of the 41st district in this case would have had a problem, or if you had a problem with the 41st district doing it, that would be an issue. But since it's not.
Right. So you've answered my question, because traditionally we've dealt with legislators from the specific legislative district where the establishment is located to file that legislation. That's fine. I understand that moving forward. My only question is because this issue, I actually spoke with the Community Association president about it, speaking with the 41st district, because at that time, part of the problem was with an establishment on the other side of the community, and it is a split community. We understand that it's been split for 18 years as the representative. So I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that I have what we're doing, a clear understanding of what we're doing as a policy in the delegation, if there is one. But more specifically, as this is a split community, if I can amend onto the bill as a sponsor under the specific circumstances which you had just previously reiterated, I would definitely like to do so. The sponsor doesn't have a problem with that.
All right. Delegate Rosenberg, do you have a problem with that?
I absolutely do not. If I may just briefly, the genesis of the bill is that Ms. Cunningham, President of the Association, mentioned the problem with this specific saloon, this bar, at a community meeting. Over the summer, I contacted her, said, we can do for you what we did in Howard Park for 4Gs, consistent with the description, and that's how the bill came about. I'm remiss in not, even if it is still on the other side, we still should have worked together on it. So, but an amendment would, to some degree, solve that problem.
All right.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Baker, are you able to draft amendment? You can draft amendments.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's do this. We're going to still move this bill tonight. So, because I don't think that's a earth-shattering thing. Delegate Haynes, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, because there's a huge amount of background noise there, I think. Or maybe not. Okay. Here's what we'll do. I'm going to first, the question was, hang on, Delegate Conaway. The question that was initially put forward was, Delegate Rosenberg had an amendment that would have changed the focus of the bill from the one side of Frederick to the other side of Frederick Road. And so that was one amendment. Then the second amendment would be Delegate Haynes requesting to be added on to the bill. Delegate Conaway, do you have a question about either of those two amendments?
No.
Okay, so let's do those.
But I do have a question about the policy that we're setting here.
Okay.
Because earlier, I mean, I don't want to get into a lot of stuff with the chairman here, but earlier, you specifically told someone there was no amending onto a bill, even though it might have been substantive that they should have been amended onto the bill. You said strictly we're not doing that. Now you're making an exception here for an amendment on the bill, and furthermore, you're setting a policy where I think a bill is being put in on another side of the street in a liquor bill that you just it's kind of confusing what's going on here. I don't think that this is the way that we've been doing things, and I have no problem with doing whatever you say do, but I think you really need to. I think we need to know what we're doing and what kind of procedure we're setting here. I mean, you're bending all the rules. The rules are being bent left and right. But we can do whatever you say because we're judiciaries.
Well, we're not in the Judiciary Committee right now, for starters. Mr. Baker has raised his hand. Go ahead.
Oh, if I could just interject, Mr. Chair, what we're doing is to vote whether the delegation supports these amendments, and we're actually would change the designation to be a delegation amendment sponsored by the delegation in the standing committee. So I know there's discussion about sort of whose name's on the amendment, but if it passes through this subcommittee, it will become a delegation amendment.
So it wouldn't matter anyway because it would just become a delegation bill anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we don't really need to add Delegate Haynes onto the bill because it's going to change into a delegation bill when it's voted out anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to reiterate the reason that I was willing to entertain adding Delegate Haynes to the bill is that it was not because he was adding on to the bill because he agreed with some kind of policy in the bill. It was because it was a liquor bill specific to a specific area that in the end would actually be in his district, and the neighborhood, which is split, agrees with it and everybody is on board. But since we don't need to do that, then we're back to just one amendment unless somebody wants to move that other amendment and add a sponsor. The general rule has been we're trying to avoid sponsor amendments where we can because of workflow at DLS. So let's do this. Let's do the first amendment, which would move it across the street. Because that's where the property at issue lies, correct? Okay.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and, Delegate Rosenberg moved it. Delegate Boyce is seconded. All right. And with that, Mr. Baker will do a quick roll call.
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Branch is absent. Delegate Conaway.
Yes.
Delegate Haynes.
Yes.
Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so in favor of the amendment. And I just wanted to point out that the amendments are confidential until I get permission to send them out. And I think a few minutes ago, Delegate Rosenberg moved the amendments, so I sent it to everyone's email if you want to take a look at it.
That's fine. Okay, so with that, now we're on the bill. Because
point of order, Mr. Chair.
what is your point of order, Delegate?
Well, my point of order is that I would like the opportunity to move the amendment to be added on as a co-sponsor.
Okay, so even though it won't show up in the end, you want to move the amendment. I'm fine with that.
That is correct, because from a historical perspective, from the record perspective, as it sits now in 44A by the amendment we just passed, I would like to make sure that the record, as it relates to my constituents who may look at this, know where my support is of a bill that's being voted on by the delegation. So I would like to move that amendment.
There's a motion that Delegate Haynes is making for an amendment. We'll have this. There's a motion in a second. Delegate Boyce.
I guess discussion about the point of order. I'm a little confused. If this is a delegation bill, correct me if I'm wrong, that means essentially all of our names are on the bill, correct, as a Baltimore City delegation?
That would be my understanding. Yes.
I'm still talking. So we're voting. So Delegate Haynes, you just have a record, even though it's not going to be physically on a bill record, your name. So that vote will be here if somebody digs up records and they decide to see the piece of paper that has X's and checks, which respectfully, I'm not sure anybody's going to dig down, but if I'm correct, a yes vote for the bill in general is support of the bill, but most importantly, support of our constituents' requests. Isn't it so?
Delegate, do you want to answer?
Yes, I was waiting to be recognized by the chair, Mr. Chairman. I think this is becoming a little bit more complicated than what it really needs to be. It's really fairly simple from my perspective. Is that my understanding is that anything that comes out of the delegation is titled the Baltimore City Delegation. First of all, that's my understanding. What I am simply saying is that upon correction of the location of the establishment, it is properly located in District 44A. And just for the purposes of legislative history, I would like for that representative of the district in which the establishment is located to be supported as a sponsor of the legislation. I can't control, and any of us control, who may research legislative history and what our positions were on legislation. It's just a courtesy which I'm asking for on the amendment. I don't see that it's any more, complicated than that. As I mentioned before, it is an issue that this community has worked on for years, including myself. And I don't think anyone is opposed to the legislation. It's just a courtesy that I'm asking that it be reflected accurately for the legislative history purposes of however it may be reflected. That's all I'm asking for, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. I just respectfully don't think so.
Hold on one second. I'm still talking. And that's why I would move the amendment pursuant to the chairman's comments if someone wanted to move it, and that's why I'm doing it. So with that, I'm changing my comments. And
let's just do this. There is a motion and a second on an amendment to add Delegate Haynes as a sponsor, basically for purposes of historical reference. We will make sure that amendment is drafted. There's a motion and a second. We will vote on that amendment. And Mr. Baker, please call a roll call.
Delegate Boyce.
Because I'm not sure I understand this, I'm a no.
Delegate Branch is absent. Delegate Conaway.
Because I would use it for running for re-election, yes.
Delegate Haynes.
Yes.
Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
The chair votes yes.
Receives 4 votes in favor.
All right. With the bill as amendment, is there further discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call on the bill as amended. Mr. Baker, go ahead.
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Branch is absent. Delegate Conaway.
Yes.
Delegate Haynes.
Yes.
Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. All right. So thank you very much. That's House Bill 256. That'll be sent to the delegation. Now on House Bill 506, this is the bill from Delegate Branch that makes effectively a typographical change in the code, making references regarding the 46th legislative district as is referenced, changes it from 2002 to the 2010 redistricting map. There is an amendment, and I don't know if that's why Jeremy Baker is raising his hand.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt for 1 second. Because the amendments are confidential, even though we all discussed it last week, Delegate Branch is not here to give me authorization to release the amendment, and he's not here to present it. However, if there were a different member who's familiar with it who wanted to put forth the same amendment, okay.
Yes. So what the amendment does, in the bill, it makes changes to 2 statements. It says it to 2 general terms. It changes it from the 46th district as was designated by the legislative redistricting map in 2002 and changes it to 2010. But it also takes the 47th district and does the same thing. we can't do that because the 47th district is no longer in Baltimore City, it's in Prince George's County. So to that end, the amendment that was drafted and that Delegate Branch has already submitted would remove the references to the 47th district from the bill, and so it would only clarify the 46th district. Are there questions about the amendment? Seeing none, I move the amendment. Is there a second? See Delegate Boyce with the second, along with Delegate Rosenberg. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Mr. Baker will vote on the amendment. Do a quick roll call on the amendment.
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Branch is absent. Delegate
Yes.
Delegate Haynes.
Yes.
Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes.
Chair Clippinger.
Yes. Okay,
Motion
so
carries.
that motion carries, and we're on the bill as amended. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none. Could we have a roll call, please, on the bill as amended to send it to the full delegation?
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Branch is absent. Delegate Cohen.
Yes.
Delegate Haynes.
Yes.
Delegate Rosenberg.
Yes.
Chair Clippinger.
Yes. All right.
Amendments.
Okay, great. So we will send these to the full delegation. Hopefully, we'll be able to take them as a consent docket on Friday, and then they'll go to economic matters. The only two bills that we have in our possession now are the 46 districts liquor bill, which has still got an amendment coming for next week, and House Bill 868. I don't know if there are any further liquor bills that have showed up for the city delegation. I haven't seen any more. If there are, then we're probably going to have a hearing on them next week. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all very much. That concludes the Alcoholic Beverage Subcommittee of the Baltimore City Delegation. Have a good evening.